This is JD of Bvtnews, and I'm back to give y'all the latest and greatest news in the sport of boxing. With that being said, man, let's talk about the knockout heard around the world by Mr. Anthony AJ Joshua knocking out clean Mr. Francis Ngannou.
Joshua can dispel the MMA champion. It is lights up. Can dispel the MMA champion. It is lights up.
I mean, he knocked Francis Ngannou out of boxing, like Uncle Phil would throw out jazz in The Fresh Prince.
Man, I'm starving. When do we eat here?
We eat here later. You eat here never.
Looks like you eat here often.
I mean, that was an absolute devastating knockout. Now, I'm going to sit here and say, man, if I was the referee, and the referee was Mr. Ricky Gonzalez, I ain't going to lie, man, after that second knockdown, y'all tell me what y'all think in the comments. After the second knockdown, I feel like Francis Ngannou was already out on his feet. I personally would have waved it off. It would have been over. It would have been over at that point. But he allowed it to go on, which gave us a massive highlight reel KO that I'm sure is going to be played for weeks and months on end throughout 2024. You already know that this knockout will definitely be, in the running for a knockout of the year. But, of course, it'll have a little bit of an asterisk on it because, it is Anthony AJ Joshua, veteran, former champion, knocking out a guy who was 0-1 in boxing. So there'll be a little bit of asterisk. But nonetheless, it is one of, the nastiest knockouts that I'm sure we will see in 2024. But salute to Francis Ngannou. He fought, Tyson King Fury. He fought Anthony AJ Joshua. I don't even want to begin to imagine the amount of money that Francis Ngannou probably generated with just two of those bouts, taking on two of the top three heavyweights in the sport of boxing. So you cannot knock, Francis Ngannou, for coming over to boxing and taking his stab at it. He even alluded to in the post-fight interview that this will not be the end. He does seem like he's going to return to, MMA and try to reign in MMA again. But he seemed pretty resolute that, he's not going to go out like this, in the sport of boxing. He feels like he could show much better than what he showed.
And then see what is the next step. But maybe MMA. But you can be sure that I'm not done here. Absolutely not.
That's the energy.
Yeah. I'm not done.
With Anthony AJ Joshua, this, keeps his streak going. You look back at 2023, Anthony AJ Joshua, knocked off Jermaine Franklin, knocked off Robert Helenius, finished up the year knocking off Otto Wallin. And then now he pops off 2024 with a flashy, viral knockout of Francis Ngannou and makes a boatload of money. So for AJ, man, his confidence is at an all-time high. I really love what I'm seeing from Anthony Joshua right now. I feel like, spiritually and mentally, it feels like Anthony Joshua is at a good place and one of the best places that he's ever been, in the sport of boxing. When Anthony AJ Joshua took that loss to Andy Ruiz, which was a shocker, when he got stunned and knocked out by Andy Ruiz, we saw AJ really start to, it appeared, hang his head and put a lot of pressure on himself after that L. And then we kind of saw it again when he couldn't quite get past Oleksandr Usyk. Remember the first fight, he lost by unanimous decision. Then in the second fight, it was a split decision loss that he had to Oleksandr Usyk. But it feels like now, over the last year, AJ is at a beautiful mental space where I don't think he's really so much worried about, losses anymore. And I think a lot of that really has to do with, fighters moving more and more out of that Mayweather line of thinking and that undefeated line of thinking where fighters are putting so much pressure on themselves to feel like, you have to stay undefeated. And then once you have a loss, oh my God, if you have one loss, you're suddenly on the brink of being out of the sport. And I think what Anthony Joshua has probably found, after having 3 losses on his resume, that right now his earning power and his status in the heavyweight division might be at the highest point it's been his whole career. Like, he's still a box office draw. He's still a formidable opponent for anybody. Right now, I feel like there's a lot of, experts and pundits out there who might even feel like AJ would knock off Tyson Fury right now. Some people feel if he gets that trilogy bout with Oleksandr Usyk, he might really be at a level where he could knock off Usyk, with that last one being a split decision victory for Usyk. So I really love that AJ has kind of relieved the pressure from himself. It looks like he's carefree. It looks like he's ready for whatever the next possible challenge might be for him. And it's a great thing for boxers to go into the ring giving their all, but understanding that even if you lose, it should not be seen as the end of your career, man. And I think we would get a lot more of the biggest and best boxing matches in the sport if, fighters started to not worry so much about being undefeated. If everybody would stop acting like you got to carry an undefeated record your whole career, we would see so many great matches much sooner. But one interesting thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on is I wonder, who would be next for Anthony AJ Joshua, because he said that he's ready to return probably in June or July, and as we all saw, he literally took like no damage in this fight. Like, this was arguably probably one of his easiest paydays of his career. As a matter of fact, it is the easiest payday of his career. Probably if we go look at every fight of AJ, there was none easier than this. Then this probably was one of his highest paydays, because the Saudi Arabian Gaming Commission and Mr. Turkey Al-Sheikh and all of them, they pay heavy, massive money for all of these bouts that they're staging over in Saudi Arabia. Now, but the interesting part for him, though, is with the Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk bout, Fury has mentioned multiple times that it's actually a 2-fight deal.
The man who dethroned AJ twice, and I'm going to have to beat him up twice. And then after that, if they're still available, then I'll fight Joshua again.
So for Anthony AJ Joshua, he probably is not going to get the winner of Fury or Usyk in 2024. So now he's going to have to stay active again, and they're going to have to find some other fighters to bring in there for AJ to keep his streak going as he waits to see how things pan out with Fury and Usyk. Right now, no matter who wins the first one, either Usyk or Fury have a right to a rematch. Then one can only assume that if it ends up one fight apiece with Usyk and Fury, that they probably would trigger a trilogy bout to finalize it and, put it all on the line one final time. So we have no clue if this, Fury versus Usyk fight is going to be 2 fights or 3 fights. So it appears like we might have to wait a while, to see Anthony Joshua get that crack at Tyson Fury, which would be a massive UK bout, or get that third opportunity, at the titles with Oleksandr Usyk, man. But nonetheless, man, salute to AJ, man. On and upward for him. He's ready for the next challenge. I love where his mental is at, man. He's at, one of the best spaces that I've ever, witnessed him be at, in the sport as, somebody who's kind of followed the career of AJ. But y'all let me know in the comments, man, what y'all think. Who do y'all think AJ should be looking at next when you look at the fact that Fury and Usyk are probably wrapped up with each other for the rest of 2024? Let me know what you think in the comments, man. Till next time, this is JD of Bvtvnews. I'm going to keep giving y'all the latest and greatest news in the sport of boxing. With that being said, man, deuces.